Hello, everyone. My name is TJ Hailstock with the National Sports Media Association, and today I'm with the 2022 Washington, D.C. Sportscaster of the Year, Grant Paulsen. Thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, TJ, my pleasure. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting to Winston-Salem and seeing everybody.
Of course. My first question is, what does receiving this award mean to you?
Yeah, it's quite an honor. Obviously, in a market like DC, which is a top 10 market in the country, there's just so many quality broadcasters and people who take their job very seriously, work very hard, and are diligent to be the best that they can be. So, anytime you get honored with something like a broadcaster, a Writer of the Year award in a market like the nation's capital, it's humbling and it's awesome. I'm lucky enough to have now won this award two times, and I don't really know how. I don't know why, and I don't just say that to sound like I'm being humble. I mean, I really don't quite know what about how I do the radio show has made me a candidate, let alone a winner. But it's been cool. I've had great experiences on the air and the radio, TV, getting to talk about teams, and I just I'm passionate about it. I don't feel like I work for a living. I love DC sports. I grew up a huge sports fan in the DC area. All those teams were all I cared about. And to be now, 34 years old and to get to talk about them all day long for my job is pretty amazing.
Right, right. So, what was your first job in the business? How did you get started?
So my experiences are really strange and unique. I have quite an odd backstory, but I actually, when I was 10 years old, I got into an argument with my uncle at a picnic. He's a big Steelers fan and Pittsburgh sports fan. I'm a big DC sports fan at the time. We were debating some preseason scrimmage between the Steelers and the Redskins, as they were called. And at that time, it wasn't even a preseason game. Like they would get together and have joint practices and actually scrimmage. And
Mhm.
so we were just kind of talking about a game that had happened. My uncle happened to be a radio personality in Pittsburgh, not sports, not covering anything,
Mhm.
just a morning kind of DJ spinning records and playing music and having funny, bits. And he was a
Yeah.
really popular on air personality in Pittsburgh. Long story short, he kind of had this idea that he would bring me on as a young kid as like his gambling expert and sports bookie. And so I would come on and pick games and give the lines
Mhm.
and things like that. And so I started making those calls when I was 10. Um, I enjoyed it. It was really, really
Mhm.
cool. And I was obviously a huge sports fan, but I'd already, even before that in my life, been like pretending to give keys to the game when I was watching or listening to a game, right? Or like pretending to break down a picture or have I remember sitting in the bathtub as a little kid, like doing press conferences where I would be asking questions and answering questions. So like I always had an interest and wanted to do that. So I started
Mhm.
making these calls for him when I was 10 on his radio show. And then a local newspaper did a story and they had me start penning like this little 50 word, like one paragraph column in my small
Mhm.
town where I'm from in King George, Virginia, in the King George Journal. Then the local TV station, Channel 9, saw that. And they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. So they did a story that I was like writing about sports. And then they started having me come up to the TV station on Fridays to pick games on TV.
Mhm.
And it kind of kept leading from there. And, I got some big breaks along the way. The Letterman show saw, my appearances on Channel 9 locally. They had me
Mhm.
come on to kind of be a, fast talking sports kid with David Letterman. I ended up going on Letterman show six times, and that kind of gave me my break. And next thing you know, I was, my first real job, I guess, other than being like a kid, would have been like hosting a young person's sports show on like a teen talk channel on Sirius XM right after it launched in the early 2000s. So that's kind of how I got my break as like a child, novelty story, so to speak. uh,
Mhm.
and I knew, even though I knew that the well was going to dry up, and as I got older, I wasn't going to keep getting the same opportunities. I knew this is what I wanted to do. So then
Right.
from there, I went to school at George Mason University and I came out and got a job at the local radio station as kind of an assistant to the beat reporter, and the rest is history.
All right, very, very interesting story. So, who else do you look up to in terms of other sports broadcasters?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my ultimate goal and kind of what I really want to do is play by play.
Okay.
I've done a lot of play by play, and I still want to do more at like a national network level. My favorite play by play broadcasters are Ian Eagle. I love Ian. I think he's not only a great human being, but he's as good and smooth as there is in the game right now. I really like Mike Tirico a lot as well. I think Tirico does, no matter what he's calling, is just a professional and just does such a great job. I idolize how he calls games. And I like Kevin Harlan a lot in that capacity as well. The energy and the kind of the influx of excitement in his voice. He's a real treasure of a PvP guy. So those would be my three that I really admire and look up to in that capacity. From a talk show standpoint, it's interesting. I think a lot of times the most famous and popular like talk show hosts are almost more, stylistically not a lot like what I want to be. Like it's more, big takes and big opinions and kind of divisive conversations, whereas I'm a little bit more like measured and numbers driven and analytical. But I would say like people that do good interviews or, I really like, I've always liked James Brown from now CBS, used to be on Fox. I think he does a really good job. And for me, I'd say my people I admire and idolize are more like play-by-play type broadcasters than like in studio hosts most of the time. I really, really like Ernie Johnson.
Okay.
From a desk standpoint, I think he is as sharp as it gets. I've always been a big Ernie fan as well.
All right, great list. So, what advice would you give to young college or high school students trying to get into this field?
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, I would say, don't wait for a job to start doing what you want to do and getting better at your craft. I think there's so many opportunities now with technology for people to hone their skills and to get experience. Like the most important thing is to get reps. And I'm a young guy still in some ways. I'm in my young 30s, but like when I was coming up, you didn't have the ability to just be your own employer and just like become a media member. You really had to get a job where you could write for people to see it or get a job where you could broadcast. So if I was in high school right now or in college right now, and I wanted to do this broadcasting, writing thing for a living in sports journalism, I would start a podcast. I'd get my equipment. I'd be podcasting a couple of times or more a week, whether that's with someone or by myself. I would start a sports blog. I would create a Twitter and account and basically every social media account with the same handle that is specific to what I'm covering. And the more niche, probably the better, honestly, because like when you get smaller down into a niche, there's not going to be like a major outlet covering you. So if you're at a high school, you should be your high school football team's beat reporter. You can cover, practices and games and break news and post who's playing and who's not. And, I would be doing that all on social media. I'd be writing stories. I'd be doing a podcast about the team and really just crushing coverage because, eventually, you're learning how to be on a beat. You're learning how to quite literally the job. And then also, and more importantly, you're taking those things eventually when you've got them at a point where they're really good and you like it to an employer. And that's now your demo. You're saying, hey, here's my social media accounts of how I will act when I'm covering, and I'm just going to pick a team, the Milwaukee Bucks. Here is my podcast that I do that I will do regularly for you on your website. And here is my blog that I ran. I'm a writer as well. I'm multi-platformed. I'm versatile. And so as you're trying to get jobs, to me, that's what I would be doing is just becoming my own kind of employer for whatever niche I have. If I'm in college, maybe you just pick a, if you're at a college where the teams actually do have a lot of media, SEC football or something, maybe you pick something that there isn't a lot. Maybe it's the baseball team or the soccer team, and you cover a team and you act, hey guys, I can't go out tonight. Sorry, there's a game. I got to go cover it. and you're
Mhm.
just on the beat. That's what I would be doing, honestly, if I was in school.
Some great advice, some great tips there. That is my last question for you. So thank you for talking with me today.
Very cool. I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm happy to do it, man. Thank you for interviewing me.